Hey, welcome everybody. Thank you for coming back for another episode of Get Inspired and Live in Your Power. And super excited to have another amazing guest with me today, Ryan Jaten. Thanks for joining us, Ryan. A little bit about Ryan before we jump into our interview. Ryan is a best-selling author and a global consultant specializing in building sales teams and distribution channels for both small and large-scale companies. And he is passionate about educating through his workshop, the Jaten Effect. He's trained thousands of people around the world in the art of selling. So we're going to be talking about selling today. He has a best-selling book called In Demand, which I ordered, by the way, Ryan. I haven't received it yet, but I was excited to see what that was all about. So I'm going to read that. Awesome. In Demand is the entry point for someone to learn the lucrative skill of selling products without selling your soul. And I know our listeners, there's probably a lot of you who have, maybe had some weird feelings about selling at some point in the past. And hopefully by the time we're done with this interview, that's all going to be gone. I met Ryan about 10 years ago. I can't believe it's been that long. We've known each other for about a decade, and we're working really closely together in the very beginning. And one of the things, Ryan, that I was really impressed with you was your down-to-earth spirit and energy. I don't think I ever saw you in a long pair of pants, like for the first 2 months that I knew you, and you're probably wearing flip-flops. So tell us a little bit about that. And I was noticing your background, your office there that you created, and it just totally fits your style. So talk a little bit about that for us.
Yeah, I think it probably came from my background in corporate America. I started probably in the same place that most people did. You get an education, you get a good job, so you can have a good future. And I noticed early on in my corporate career that I was very restless. It wasn't that corporate's bad. I was very restless. I just never felt settled. And I found myself bouncing around from company to company. And I would take a job here, I'd take a job there when I was in my early 20s and even into my 30s. And one day I just sit down and really decide, well, why am I so restless? Like, do I not know myself well enough to go out and find something that I'm truly passionate about? One thing that always struck me, I will remember this forever, is that in corporate America, we used to set goals. And if we hit our goals, then we got casual Friday. and I don't know if that resonates with anybody. I don't know if they still do it. I haven't been there for a long time, but we used to work really hard to get casual Friday. If we hit these goals, then we could dress down on Fridays. And I can remember actually enjoying that. I can remember being incentivized by that. I don't blame the boss for doing it. It worked on me. And then one day I sat down and I thought, what really drives me? And I thought, you know what? I want to dress how I'm most comfortable. And as long as I'm not offending a client, I want to dress down. I want to be in a t-shirt and shorts. And that's my space where I'm most creative and I'm most active and most productive. If you put me in a cubicle and if you put me in a shirt and tie or even a polo, you're going to, I don't know, this sounds weird, but you're really going to restrict my own creative energy and how I can produce for you. And I used to just think, man, I am working 4 days a week just to dress down on Fridays. Why don't I go create something where I can dress down every day?
Wow.
And what's interesting is it led me into my own office space. Like, as you see my background, I wanted to be somewhere where I wanted to be, and I built it. So you mentioned my office. I built a space where I wanted to be. I wanted to show up. I wanted to create. I wanted to be productive, and I did it. I built this, and I enjoy it.
That's so awesome. This is interesting. It gives a new spin on the concept of survival. When you think about survival is like the food you eat, the clothes you wear, the home, having actually a shelter over your head. I mean, there's like certain things that we need to survive. But what you're describing to me is that there is a certain type of clothing, there's a certain type of foods, there's a certain type of surroundings that we get to surround ourselves with that will actually give us the most opportunity to succeed. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Absolutely. And if you don't believe it, then what do you take off those corporate clothes when you get home? Do you dress down when you get home, and why do you do it? Well, I want to relax. I want to feel comfortable. Well, to me, relaxed and comfortable, you said down to earth. I am my most productive when I'm down to earth. I'm my most productive when I'm humble. And the idea of dressing up, I don't know, it's my own opinion, but the idea of dressing up didn't put me in a humble place. Dressing up put me in a place of pride and a place of authority. And I'm not my most creative. I'm not my most productive when I'm that way. And so maybe I'm weird, but I can conquer the world in a pair of shorts. And I just wanted to create an environment where I could do that.
I'm going to write that down. I can conquer the world in a pair of shorts. I love that. You should put that up on your wall.
I should. I really should. I think
That's,
it reminds me of the story with Henry Ford when he brought a consultant in to evaluate his company one time. And at the end of the consulting, he says, well, there's this guy that has an office down there that puts his feet on his desk all day and he just sits there. And Henry Ford said, yeah, that guy's one of the inventors of one of the biggest systems in my company that made us millions and millions of dollars. He can leave his feet on the desk all day long.
wow.
And I thought, could I be more productive if I changed my environment?
Yeah,
And it did. It was one of the things that really drew me out of that corporate setting and drew me into more of the entrepreneurial setting. I got to create a lifestyle that I could be most productive in.
that's amazing. And I know one of the things that you shared with me, and in fact, this was one of the first stories that I heard about you when I first met you, was you were working in the corporation of the company that you were affiliated with, I think in more of a consultant basis or something. But I remember, and you'll have to tell the story because I can't remember all the details, but I remember that you went to the owners of the company, the CEOs of the company, and said, I figured out a way for you to make more money, and it's that you have to fire me. Why don't you tell a little bit about that story, just putting yourself in the right environment to be successful?
Yeah, whenever I do a lot of consulting and a lot of training and a lot of work with other companies, one of my true passions is to help companies grow. And one of the things that I do as part of that contract is that I call it being a partner without equity. Like I want to partner with another company as if I have ownership, even when I don't. And the story you reminded me of, the story you're telling is, I was consulting with a company and they had asked me to put together a business plan for them that would make them both elastic and profitable. When I went through my entire strategy and I treated it as if I was an owner in the company, I realized that they were very, very leadership heavy. Well, I was one of the leaders in the company. And when you're leadership heavy and you identify that, I went to them and said, you need to reduce the amount of leadership you have so you can reduce your overall expenses. And there were some P&L adjustments that we had to make. And I did. I recommended that they end my contract. I recommended that they separate with me to allow themselves to be more profitable. And I did it because that's the way I would have done it if I was an owner in the company. If I actually had equity in the company and I went through an evaluation, I would have let go of me too. And it wasn't because of my skill set, it was because of where they were, as the size of a company. And I think I've taken that same approach with every company I've consulted with is if I were in your shoes, I would do this. And in turn, it just put me in the right places. It built the right relationships with my partners and allowed me to grow a company that acted the same way. So it was a good fit all the way around. It was, I guess, in a way, it was me showing my own integrity of helping somebody, that partner without equity type of concept.
That's awesome. I had lots of experiences in when I was in corporate America, because I have that same kind of feeling. I want to put myself, I really pour my heart and soul into whatever I do. And you know that because we worked together for a long time. And I found that in the way that I was doing it was really inauthentic. It was really counterfeit. What I really should have been doing was pouring my heart and soul into my own creation. And so, I know how that feels to partner without equity. I think I love putting a name to that. I know for you in that particular situation, you didn't actually leave the company. They ended your contract, but then you stayed on in a different capacity that actually helped the company grow even more.
Yeah. And by the way, I did burn that ship before I had made my transition plan.
Oh, really?
But yeah, it really did work out. It really worked out for the company. It really worked out for myself. It gave me a lot of confidence that if you do the right thing, things typically work out. And I think that really brought me some clarity moving forward any other business ventures I had.
Awesome. This podcast, I always interview people who have gotten inspired and they took action, even, burn their ships, like, we're going to doing this. I don't know how it's going to turn out. And so that's the moment that, drew me to want to have you on the podcast, was making that decision and not really knowing how it was going to turn out. But I know you also made a discovery in the process as you took on this other role in sales, in building the sales force, that really, I'm guessing, probably opened the doors to where you are today with a very lucrative company that you've built.
Yeah, it did. Again, I think most people make decisions in relationship to their own personal confidence. And sometimes working for a company in a corporate capacity or even a contract basis, when you're working for somebody, they say that if you're not building your own dream, you're building somebody else's.
Yes.
And sometimes when you're building somebody else's dream, that's not bad. Oftentimes you can hone in and develop your own skill set while you're helping somebody else build their dream. So it's not a negative thing. It could just be a part of the process. But I realized that I did have a skill set to build my own dream. And it allowed me, it did. It was a segue to allow me to do that. And if we truly believe we're the sum of all the decisions we made in the past, when I look back, I do realize that each of those things that I did, either in corporate America or in contract working for one person, it was building my confidence to when I did get inspired to go out on my own. And it did give me the confidence to say, you know what? I do want to be known for something, or I am known for something. And I can do this on a large scale. I don't have to do it for one person. And that's what really allowed me to push out and do my own thing, and ended up growing a multinational company that does quite a bit of business. It really gave me that confidence to do that.
That's amazing. I why don't you talk a little bit about your company, maybe the Jaten effect or whatever it is that you'd like to share about what you do.
Yeah, I'd love to. Wait, I get a chance to talk about my company?
Yes, you do.
Great. That's my favorite part.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I had a very natural transition into entrepreneurship. I had found a skill set that I thought could be marketable on a large scale. I had heard a quote. It's probably Mark Twain or something. I'm not much of a quote person. I'll probably ruin it, but it says, whenever you find yourself on the side of the majority, you should probably pause and reflect. That's how I evaluated things. People typically, the majority of people do not like sales. They rank it up there with dentistry, speaking in public, and the majority does not like sales. And I thought, wow, if the majority of people don't like something, there must be an opportunity on the other side of that, because oftentimes big business can be built out of necessity. Okay, invention, where they say necessity is the mother of invention. Well, the majority of people don't like sales. I just happen to be good at it, and happen to enjoy it, because like I say in my book, I can teach you how to sell anything without selling your soul. And as long as I felt good about it, I could build a business around it. And so I did. I went out and built a business that had two parts. One was a training part, and I originally started out as a trainer. I built a training company around my own methodology, my own sales methodology, called the Jaten effect. I did write a best-selling book about it and had a 12-week training program that came in behind it. And companies were hiring me to train their staff on the Jaten effect. They were hiring me to teach their people to do what I do. And that was a very lucrative business for me, until I saw an opportunity open up where I realized that it's not just people that they're not naturally drawn to sales. They don't enjoy it. It's also companies. Companies, by and large, do not want to own or manage or operate their own sales team. They find out that salespeople oftentimes are some very interesting people to manage. And so I founded a company that 4 years ago that was an outsourced sales agency. Companies that wanted to, kind of take the managed services path, where they wanted to outsource their sales and use an agency, just like you'd outsource your legal, or just like you'd outsource your accounting or something like that. My agency allows people to outsource their sales. So the company gets to be experts at what they do rather than being experts at sales. Yeah, we had a chance to, over the last several years, build a multinational company. Right now, we service clients in almost every time zone around the world. We have a decentralized sales staff, so we're very scalable. We're very nimble. Companies contact us and they say, we want you to sell our product for us. And we will either teach their team how to do it more effectively, or we will do it for them. We will actually take on the entire sales process. We will hire the reps, we'll manage the reps, we'll pay the reps, we will coordinate all of that. So a company can just have somebody else doing it at a high level and a very effective level by experts, and they can be good at what they're doing. I think you and I both know the quote that if you want something done right, don't do it yourself, hire an expert, right?
Right.
Well, we're just an opportunity for people to hire an expert. So IO Consortium is that sales agency. And then the Jaten effect is where, that's my happy place.
The training.
Training and develop, we have that 12-week course that we contract out. A lot of companies license that training so that we can train their teams how to improve and how to sell more effectively. And I just found a place where I really enjoyed what I did, and I found something that I was really good at and came almost naturally to me.
Yeah, I love that. It's like that, your office that you built, you built your happy place. You built some place that you love to go to work. And that's the goal, I think, of every person, is to want to be able to infuse, your genius and everything that you love to do into what you're doing every day for other people. And I love what you said about, hiring an expert, you and your team, because this is what you love to do and this is your happy place. And so that they can be in their happy place and, doing the things that they're expert at. And I'm very much a proponent of that. I hire almost everything out that
Now,
is exactly
I,
my expertise.
I can actually give you a really, really good example, and I'll try not to name drop because I don't know if I have permission to drop it, but we do, because of what we do in the sales agency, we do attract a lot of celebrities that don't want to sell their own stuff. And we have a celebrity client right now who, there was a movie made after her. She's been on Oprah, she's been on Dr. Phil, she's been everywhere. And she has this passion. She has this immense passion for helping teenage girls thrive and become independent and be strong and really know how to navigate some of the harder things in this world. And she takes the position that she doesn't want to be their mentor. She wants their moms to be their mentor. So she has this mother-daughter mentorship program that she developed, her and her business team developed. And they were passionate about it. And that's all they focused on. And not only is she a celebrity, but she's also a worldwide professional athlete. And so her time is very consumed. And they thought that if they built something amazing, that everybody would buy it. Well, come to find out, they did build something amazing, but they didn't have the mechanism to sell it. And about 2 weeks before they were getting ready to lose a bunch of money on deposits and event staff and all that kind of stuff, they called us and said, we need some help. And we sold their event out in 2 weeks, and then sold out every event they had for the next year and a half. And then, that parlayed, they're going 3 times as big this year. They'll do $9 million in sales this year in their events. And it was just a really good example of somebody who had a very strong passion towards something, but needed the sales mechanism bolted onto it. And focusing on sales actually took away the attention they had on the mother-daughter mentorship program. And it was just, for us, we got to be passionate about both. I actually sent my wife and daughter through it, and it was a good program. But that's just an example of the need that some companies have for an outsourced sales team.
That's such a great example because, you think about it, there might be some things that you're like, well, of course it's going to be hard to sell that. But if it's something that truly has value and that you're really passionate about, and I know I talk to people all the time, my own clients and even listeners of this show will reach out to me and they're like, I have this amazing thing, but that old adage, if you build it, they will come, isn't necessarily true. I mean, you definitely have to go out and find the people who are going to be passionate about that too. Yeah, I just think that's wonderful that you're offering a service that other people really have a hard time doing. Is definitely necessary. And like you said, you found that niche because the majority of people aren't comfortable with it, but everybody needs it. Everybody needs a sales team to be able to make some money.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And there we are.
And here you are. Let me ask you, I'm kind of curious, do you ever have somebody come to you and they want you to sell a product that is really hard to get passionate about? Is that something that you qualify that before you take on a client?
Yes. Well, there's never a project that I'm not passionate about, but there are projects that I will disqualify.
Okay.
Our mission statement of what we are designed to do, we focus on three things in the company. We focus on partnership. Okay. We really take that partners without equity position where when somebody contracts with us to be their sales team, we bolt onto them as if we are their internal department. So partnership is a big focus for us. Performance, we're a performance-based organization. We only get paid for when we perform. There is no retainers, there is no fees outside of the, what we only collect a percentage of revenue that we create. So performance is a big deal for us. But the third one is principles. We have principles as a company. We have a value statement. We follow a certain set of principles. And when we're doing an onboarding of a new client, if the principles of the company don't align with the principles of our company, we just tell them it's not a good fit. What that means is that everyone that does align, I can be passionate about. And so I have disqualified people that just they're not in alignment. They're not good or bad. They just weren't in alignment with our principles. And I've had to say no. But anybody that I've said yes to, I am one of the gatekeepers of all new clients into our company. And as the CEO of the company, I get to choose who we work with and who we don't work with. And to date, I have never contracted with a client that I wasn't absolutely committed or passionate about their product. And so it became very easy for me to build sales systems and sales processes because I believed in it as well.
That's beautiful. And that really does align with your whole bottom line philosophy about just being in alignment, being in integrity, always, surrounding yourself with those things that you're passionate about and just living a life of power, living in your power. That's what it's all about.
And let's not be mistaken. To me, I'm a very black and white person. I know that my background doesn't prove that, but I'm very binary. And it doesn't take something extraordinary or glamorous or sexy for me to be passionate about it. It can be boring. It can be software. We have a client right now who's a neurosurgeon in Florida who developed a software program. It's a QR code that speeds up the intake of new clients into a doctor's office. That is not the sexiest thing in the world. But when you hear this doctor who designed it and patented it talk about why he did it and what it allows him to do in his life, to go to Ghana and do, relief services, and for him to do that, like I said, software and a QR code that embeds private information isn't all that glamorous. But when you hear where it came from and why it came, it's very easy to get passionate about that. We sell software, we sell personal development programs, we sell micro education programs. And to me, I can get passionate about a boring product that has huge upside. Like if I can see the product owner has a real passion for what he does, and I can see that they're going to do well with it and they can grow a business out of it, I'm just as excited about helping an entrepreneur scale their company as I am in their product. So that passion and that alignment can come from a lot of different angles. It doesn't mean you have to have the shiniest thing on the block. If it comes from a good place and you have good intentions and it solves a real world problem, I'm going to get really passionate about it.
I love that. I can see that even you don't have to be a user of the product. Obviously, like you said you sent your wife and daughter to one client's event, but you can see the passion that the other person has in it, and you can that can rub off on you and you can feel that.
Oh, absolutely.
That's great. Before we go any further, I know that there's probably people who want to reach out to you, find out a little bit more about what you do. Why don't you go ahead and tell those people who are maybe interested in your Jaten effect, learning about training their salespeople or even training themselves on sales, and maybe also about your Done For You program too.
Yeah, for sure. I'm a very approachable person. I'm not the CEO that is unapproachable. You can just reach out directly to my personal email address. My name is Ryan. So the email address is ryan@jaten.com. It's just j10.com, just those 3 digits. So send me an email. Just send me an email. Hey, Ryan, this is me. I need some help. And you tell me what you're looking for. And I'd be more than happy to have a conversation with you. I'm not that busy. I can answer my own emails and be more than happy to visit with you. If you want to look at it from a distance and get to know a little bit of what all the services we offer, you're welcome to go to j10.com, just j10.com. If you don't email me, you're always welcome to go to IO Consortium, which is the web address to the agency I described. But any of those areas, you can go to LinkedIn. You can reach out to me just about anywhere you want. Very accessible and easy to get in touch with. So would love to chat with you.
That sounds great. And we're going to have all of those links in the description also, so you can just grab those there. I know you have your book in demand. I think this is where I found it, at jaten.com/in-demand. So if you're interested in that book, that's there too. So we'll have that in the description as well.
Yeah, and by the way, that book is not a profit center for us. That is sold at cost. It's discounted. I think it's only $9.99 online.
Yes.
That way anybody can get a hold of it. It's affordable for nearly anybody, and I think it will really be a good connection for people that are looking to improve their own skill set in sales, improve their own personal relationships, or even just improve their own communication skills. You'll find a lot of commonality in there.
That sounds awesome. Before we end, I just have maybe a thought-provoking question for you, for our listeners. If there are some listeners out there who maybe are working at a job where they're not really passionate, or they're feeling a little bit out of, sorts, maybe they want to be in that casual Friday all the time and they're not, or maybe they are in a casual Friday job and they really wish that they could dress up, because that's the way I am. I love getting dressed up and doing my makeup every day. I mean, that's just me. But I know a lot of people don't like that. So if there's somebody that's in that situation where they're just kind of not feeling like they're really in the right place, what advice would you give them as like a first step to start living in their power?
I think that's a great question, by the way. I sometimes wish I would have asked myself that question earlier in my life, but I'm glad I eventually asked it. I would probably have to say if somebody came to me and said, "What's your secret to success?" or "What should I do?" I think that very, very, very clearly and strongly it come from me is that it has to do with your level of courage. The level of risk that you're willing to take is going to be the level of potential you have. Your potential is directly tied to the level of courage or risk you're willing to take. We've heard the quote that you regret the things that you didn't do more than you regret the things that you did do and made mistakes on. I made a lot of mistakes, and I've learned a lot from those mistakes, but nothing has brought me greater regret than the things that I didn't do or that I haven't done yet. And I would say that if you're in a place that you're not happy with, nobody has to tell you that. Nobody has to send you an email that says, "Hey, you're not happy." Like, only you know that. And it's not even just being unhappy. If you're unfulfilled, if you're restless, like I was in a high-paying executive job for a Fortune 500 company, and it brought a lot of benefits. It paid well. It had a lot of cool things attached to it, even casual Fridays. But I was restless, and I knew it. And I listened to that restlessness. And I quite literally, and not to be cliche, but I burned my ships. The day that I resigned, I was also offered a promotion. I was offered a promotion to be the VP of the company. And this was a very large company, over $1 billion a year company. And I can remember that when they offered me the promotion, I had not resigned yet. I actually went into the office to resign, and they interrupted me and said, "Hey, congratulations, we've just promoted you to vice president." And they said, "What did you want to talk about?" And my eyes got really big, and I said, "Well, I'm going to go to lunch. Why don't we talk this afternoon?" And I cowered. I actually withdrew in my own mind this resignation, even though I knew it was the right thing to do. And I went to lunch, and I remember I called my wife, and she goes, "How'd it go?" Because, in her mind, I was going there to quit. "How'd it go?" And I said, "Well, I just got promoted to VP." And she said, "Well, how much?" That was the first question. And that's a reasonable question. As odd as that may sound, it's a reasonable question. And my answer to her was probably an answer to myself. I said, "Well, was money ever the issue?" And she said, "No." And I said, "I'll see you in an hour." And I walked back in, and I resigned. And that was the starting point where I started really focusing on this entrepreneurial idea, this idea that I wanted to find something where I wouldn't be restless anymore. I wanted to solve the restlessness. I didn't want a job for a year or 5 years. I didn't want to work towards casual Fridays, but it took courage. It actually took some risk. And where I am today and what I have built today has some of it has to do with my skill set, but the majority of where I am today has to do with the level of risk I was willing to take to get there. At some point, you have to be willing to risk something. I'm not going to tell you to risk it all. I mean, I'm that kind of person, but you got to risk something. And if you're playing it safe, if you are not willing to risk, if you're only willing to risk a little, that's equal to your potential on the other side. So if I had to give advice to anybody, I'll just tell you my philosophy on how I do things now. And this is an adopted philosophy. This is something I've learned and perfected over time. But here's the one thing I would tell people: look for opportunity and say yes to everything. I got in this habit many, many years ago where I just said yes to everything. You can sort out the details later, but say yes to everything, because on the other side of a yes is everything. On the other side of a no, or on the other side of procrastination, or the other side of I'll think about it, is nothing. There is nothing on the other side of a no. There is no level of protection you can give yourself. You can't protect yourself into opportunity and happiness. You're going to have to risk something. And so just say yes to everything. And I think that's probably served me more than anything. When I look at the opportunities that presented themselves after I left the corporate scene, my level of success and my level of opportunity was directly related to my level of risk and my ability to say yes to things and go figure it out. So it worked for me. I don't know if that was sound for everybody, but it certainly has paid dividends in my life.
I would say that is definitely, I would say that 99% of the people, that is really, really good advice. And you're not the only one that I've heard say that. Successful people say yes, and they know how to risk, and they know that it's all going to work out. They will figure it out. I think that level of courage that you were talking about and confidence is directly related to your ability, to your willingness to put yourself out there. So, wow, amazing advice. Thank you so much, Ryan. And this has been an amazing interview. I'm just super grateful for you being here. And I'm so grateful to be able to get this out there for our listeners to hear. Any last thoughts before we end our interview today?
No, other than just want to say thank you to you, Eileen. I mean, it was great to get the invite. It was great to get the call. Any chance that I have to give back, any chance that I have to share anything that I've been through, I like to consider myself as an open book. And, if you can ask the right questions of the right people, you're going to get answers that are going to touch people's lives. I just want to thank you for giving me the chance to touch somebody's life. So I wish the best for you as well.
Thank you. Thank you. And you're welcome. Well, thank you so much, Ryan. Appreciate you being here today. And thank you, listeners, for being here and joining us on Get Inspired and Live in Your Power. And we'll look forward to being back together again with another amazing guest. And until we're together again, get inspired and live in your power.